welcome to Mooney Reads. Today I'm going to be talking about what I read in the month of February. February was the Blackathon, which is hosted by Jesse, and I'll have their stuff down in my description. I also read quite a few things for the Read Queer All Year initiative that the Queer Lit Readathon has been putting together with some prompts each month. And then I have one book that's kind of outside of the scope of all that. I also did a vlog in February that is actually rolling over into March a little bit. So that will be out hopefully by the end of March. We will see. So the books that were a part of that vlog, I won't be going into very much detail, but you can look forward to those later. So I will start with the beginning, what I read in the beginning of the month. The first book that I finished in February was The Honeys by Ryan Sala. This is an arc that I've had for an embarrassing amount of time. It's been out for a hot minute, but I got the arc because I'm a bookseller. I'm pretty sure we actually got this arc after it had already been out. I actually ended up listening to it on audio, which I really enjoyed. The person who did the audiobook was really good, and they also added in some sound effects, which I appreciated. I loved this book. It kind of blew my mind. This is a young adult horror novel that takes place at a summer camp. This is one of the ones in the vlog. It's absolutely incredible. This was a 5-star. I think actually everything that I read for the vlog, at least up until this point, is a 5-star. So there were a lot of really good books this month, and The Honeys is definitely one of them. But it also fit for one of the prompts for Read Queer All Year. And the Read Queer All Year prompts that this fit, I think I had initially could have fit for the January's Read Your Shelves since I started it for this. I don't think it actually fits any of the February prompts, but it's gay, and I read it, so there's that. The next book that I finished is Imagination and Manifesto by Ruha Benjamin. Another 5-star and another one that I read for the vlog, so you'll get more in-depth kind of look into this one. I also recently talked about this one in the book haul that I put up. Like I said, in that it's incredible. Like the title says, it's about imagination, but it's specifically about being able to imagine the future so that we can achieve that future. So imagining a future that's actually good for everyone, and something outside of kind of the mainstream narrative of what the future kind of has to look like. This is a new release that I haven't really seen a whole lot of people talk about, but it should absolutely go on your list. I picked up Imagination partly for the vlog that I'm doing, but it also fit for the Blackathon for a 2024 release. After that, I read An Unexpected Turn by Meka James, and this is a romance novella. So I read it around Valentine's Day because I thought it was appropriate, and it is an ebook that I remembered to read. Granted, I did buy this ebook recently, so it's not as impressive as it sounds because it was on the top of my mind. But it was very cute. Basically 2 people on either side of a wedding party. One is the sister of the groom, who's also kind of the best woman, and then the best friend and maid of honor. And they have to kind of unexpectedly go on a road trip together. Only one bed, 2 very different personalities coming together. It was really cute. I think that it was really believable, like the fact that they do have 2 different personalities. It's not like either one of them like gave up something or is constantly annoyed. It was written with as much nuance as you can put in, a little novella like that. And the reason that I'd picked this one up is because I had a couple of years ago read a Meka James novella and really liked the focus on agency and consent, and this also had that in there. Kind of also in terms of how the plot was, not just the smut, although that's always good to have in the center of that too. And An Unexpected Turn fit for the weird Read Queer All Year prompt romance, and for the Blackathon prompt to read something with multiple perspectives. After that, I finished Pageboy by Elliot Page, which is a memoir. Elliot Page, I think, is probably best known for Juno and Umbrella Academy. And this is basically a look into his relationship to queerness, his experience of queerness and agency, kind of finding his voice. This was told in a nonlinear format, which I thought was really cool. Not only are each of the chapters kind of bounced back and forth during his life, there are also some scenes within the chapters where you'll kind of back up a little bit and get some from beforehand, which I thought it was really well done, and it made a lot of sense to me, especially since we're talking about queerness. And often, I think an integral part of figuring yourself out in terms of sexuality or gender and coming out in general, I think that whole process, especially when some of the stuff happens a little later in life, like if you don't come out as a teen, a lot of it kind of requires that kind of introspection. So it was really good. I actually also read this for the vlog, so I go into it in a lot more detail. I absolutely loved it. I loved how it was written. I heavily related to a lot of it. It was a 5-star. I read this partly physically, and then I was also able to get the audiobook, so it was sort of a hybrid read. Pageboy fit the Read Queer All Year prompt for Transmasc Pride Day. After that, I read Generations, a memoir by Lucille Clifton. This is a memoir kind of about her family. Lucille Clifton is a poet, and you can definitely tell from the way that she writes. It's about her family, but it is still very short. Despite that, I think you get a pretty clear snapshot of a certain part of her and her family. This is another one that was in the vlog, and another one that was 5 stars. And Generations fit the Blackathon for the multi-POV prompt. After that, I finished Plantains and Are Becoming by Melania, Luisa, Marte. And this one, I think, was the most disappointing book this month. Like I said, I've had a lot of really good reads. I just listed off a bunch of stuff that was 5-star, plus 1 4-star. This I think I gave 3. I feel like the star thing is maybe a little bit moot, just because I had conflicting feelings about this, and with poetry, you know, there are some really good poems in here, but there's also a lot that was just really lackluster. I initially did consider picking this one up just because the cover was really pretty. It was the Queerthology book club pick, so I kind of went ahead and got it. And it also fit for the Blackathon for a book that was recommended on the Black Bookish Internet because it was a book club pick. And it starts off really strong. I did like the first poems that she wrote about her family and stuff like that. And I think that when she talks about family, and then some of the stuff later on talking about place was also very good. But the thing that really threw me off was that part of the way through part 1 of the book, I think it's told in 3 parts. About halfway through part 1, there are a series of poems that just really rubbed me the wrong way. That it affected the whole book. Unfortunately, there were just several in a row where there was a bunch of really, like, just empty liberal platitudes that, like, occurred in all of them, and some of them it was kind of central or like the gotcha of the poem. And it was also very confusing to have that in some of the poems, while there were other poems that had kind of things that I thought were more either like more revolutionary language, like she talks about or refers to like the Haitian Revolution, or just had like different political prerogatives than some of these. Like, for instance, there's a poem on voting, and basically throughout the course of the poem, she's talking about being disappointed by the people that she ended up voting for and kind of feeling like it was like sort of a pointless endeavor because the machine is still the machine and it's still harming marginalized people. But then a few poems later, like, not voting for Trump is seen as a subversive thing that she did in the context of the poem. Like, there's this big list of things that are like subversive or good that she's not doing, and one of them was voting for Trump. So how do we go from that to that? And in that same poem, she kind of turns the Make America Great Again thing on its head, like, we're the ones who make America great, which is tired now. It was kind of tired in 2018. And even when people started to, kind of use that in a sort of subversive way, it wasn't really that great anyways, because that in and of itself is a callback to other things. But I don't know. That's not the only poem or sets of poems that I was thinking of, but that's just one example. It was politically confused. I think when you look at it as a whole, and that just made it not that great for me. I know that there are some poems in here that I would have liked a lot more if I had just read them by themselves, without the kind of various other poems that I thought were kind of politically lukewarm and cheesy. So the final book that I read in February was What's Your Pronoun? Beyond He and She by Dennis Barron. This I read for the DIY classes / independent study thing that I'm trying to do, which is going a little bit slow, but that's okay. It's kind of supposed to be at my own pace. So because it's a part of that, I will do a standalone review for this. So I won't go too far into the weeds. It was okay. I did learn a lot about early kind of pronoun discourse. It focuses a lot on the late 1800s and early 1900s, especially around the time of women's suffrage. But I don't think that its like political analysis was very rigorous, and I don't think that it took nearly the same amount of care when talking about current usage. It was perfectly respectful in terms of trans people, and they were brought up. But I just think he tried to have a bigger conversation at the end that honestly a whole other like study of contemporary usage was needed. Granted, I am biased because my master's thesis was on contemporary language usage in the queer community, so that is my niche. But if you're interested in the history of the English language and pronouns, this could be really interesting. I thought there were lots of cool tidbits. I don't know if I would recommend it for the like a person trying to get into nonfiction, because it is kind of repetitive. So it might be a little bit boring. But I did find it interesting, even if I had some criticisms. I think I might have said that What's Your Pronoun was the last book that I read. That was the actual last book that I read. I don't have with me because I borrowed it from the library. So it's back at the library now. But that is I Am Alfonso Jones, which is a young adult graphic novel / comic. And it focuses on a high school boy who is killed by a police officer while he's shopping. And throughout the course of the comic, you know, he's a spirit and he's talking to other people who were also victims of police brutality. And you also get to see different people in his life's kind of response to this, the town's response to this, whether or not there is justice. I thought that it was really well done. I think that being able to explore so many different perspectives was neat. And I don't think that it was like too shallow in that regard. I think sometimes it can get a little bit intense with so many different perspectives. And while it wasn't super long, so you don't get super into the weeds, I still think that, you know, it was done well. There were a couple of times where I was a little bit confused about the prerogative of the book in regards to some things. Like, there were a couple of people who, like, kind of went out of the way to say certain things about, like, the, like, mentality of, like, ACAB that I was a little confused about. But that took up a pretty small portion of the book. I think the majority of it was good and well done. It very sad, obviously, but I think adding like the bits of historical perspective and things like that was really good. And this fit for the Blackathon prompt to read a graphic novel. So that was all that I finished reading. There were some things that I started or worked on as well. For that same vlog that I read all of my 5-star books during, I started Cat on a Hot Tin Roof as well. I'm a little bit past the first act, and still working my way through it. That's a Tennessee Williams play. And then I started Doppelganger by Naomi Klein. This I started on audiobook, and it was, I think I got through a couple chapters and it was just so good. I knew that it was going to be good. I keep seeing it recommended. I haven't actually read any other Naomi Klein books, which is probably something that I need to rectify. But just based on what I know about her, I thought this was going to be good. And since the audiobook was so good, I needed my own copy to kind of mark up. And I'm probably going to restart it physically so that I can make notes and stuff. But so far it's really good. So that's what I read for the month of February. If you've read any of these, let me know what you thought. And thank you all so much for watching. Bye.